On this episode of the Leadership Hustle, we're going to challenge how you're currently doing your performance reviews. Hello, and welcome to the Leadership Hustle for executives whose companies are growing fast and need leaders who are ready. Welcome back to the Leadership Hustle. I'm Andrea Fredrickson, and I'm joined with Michelle today.
Yes, good morning.
And today, this is, we are recording episode 53. And so 53 means we are starting our third year for the podcast. So this is kind of exciting. I can't believe it's
crazy.
been.
I know.
It's been a while. I didn't realize how long it had been, but yeah, we've been doing these for a little while. So today we thought we would talk about actually a scenario, a situation where I was watching a webinar. And this webinar was about performance reviews. And I was curious about what people were saying about performance reviews. And I thought, to be honest with you, I thought we were a lot further down this road than we are, apparently. I just don't think people understand. People who are in management, people who are in HR, I just don't think people get what employees need from performance reviews. They just don't get it right. So let's just dive into this. I know you talk to a lot of directors and other management folks. You hear about performance reviews. What are some of the things that you're hearing that just seem to tell you they're just not getting it?
Well, I'm going to flip this a little bit on you. I mean, I'm hearing more and more where people are, organizations, usually within their leadership HR group, they are wanting to improve them. And they're trying to make them, I want to say, a little more tangible, more conversation. And so some of them that I have in mind have removed the scores, for example.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And they have aligned them a little more with their values, and they're asking more open-ended questions. So, which aligns with different things that we've talked about that can be beneficial.
Yep.
But then on the flip side, as I'm talking to that frontline manager or any level after these changes have been made, because some of these companies I'm thinking of, it's been a couple years now that they've made these changes. They despise them because for a couple of reasons. One is they feel like they're very time consuming.
Right.
And, I lean into, well, what about your one-on-ones and that discussion on how that can help. But they also want to be able to, I don't want to say rank, but there is a little bit of wanting people to have that you're doing great to you're not doing well at all.
Force ranking.
Yeah, more of that force ranking and more specific in regards to job skills versus using these open-ended questions and plugging in those skills, right? It's because it's almost like it's probably making them think more. And they're struggling with that because they haven't had to do that. So I don't necessarily know the quality of them. I think that, this one company I can think of for sure has been making improvements, but because the managers and supervisors are struggling now with that change, with that shift.
Got it. So, when we look at some of the things that people have been doing, the first thing is they make it a scheduled event, and so the feedback that people are getting are, here's the one time a year. They send out a self-evaluation. The employee gives back their evaluation, and they're using that person's information to do their own. That's so wrong. Like, they're not doing their own judgment. They're not using their own feedback, their own thoughts about what this is. And so they're just saying, oh, so I don't piss somebody off, or I'm not going to be blindsided by this. Oh, I got to tiptoe around this, right?
Yes. And I wonder if they're not, because I know a couple companies, the systems they use require both to complete them before they can see each other's.
Some do, but a lot of people who are not using a system, a software.
Then they can get away with,
right,
for sure, doing that.
And so then they're also an event.
Yes.
Okay. And just as you mentioned, there are companies that are comparing employees who do the same position against each other, as opposed to, here's what the job description says. Here's what we're doing based upon what the expectations are. And then how are they doing in their own improvement? There's a combination of things. It's not how well do I do against Michelle and how does Michelle do against Andrea. It's how do I rank against the expectations
Yes.
of the position, and am I making improvements and making strides toward those? People aren't doing that. They're saying, yeah, well, she or he does this or that, and it's like, but you don't have what does it take to be meeting expectations, and what does it take to be using that what we call discretionary effort to do above and beyond the expectation. And I don't know that there's a lot of different scores other than not meeting expectation. People get, whether you or not you have numbers, it's just you aren't, you are, or you're going above and beyond.
Yeah.
And you don't need numbers for that.
Correct.
You just need to know what the expectations are.
People still plug in numbers though when you have a, because that's still a forced answer, right?
Right.
Meeting expectations, not meeting expectations. So they plug it in 1 to 3 or whatever.
Well, and then I hear people talking about, well, I don't know what kind of goal to give them. What? I don't understand. I don't know what goal to give them. It's, well, they've been in their job for 27 years. Okay. And so how are they doing on their communication skills? How are they doing on their interpersonal skills? How are they doing on their timeliness? How are they doing on developing a new skill, learning a technology, learning something that is going to improve or add value to the organization? And if you as a leader manager can't do that, we can have a different conversation.
Well, and it also goes a bit with, I've bumped into this a little bit lately with conversations where leaders are recognizing that, whether it was 2020, whether it was happened before that, the expectations that are technically for that role, they've kind of lowered them. And I know
we're going to talk about that. That's another episode.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
We were dealing, having discussions with organizations far before COVID, but people are starting to have this a moment with, my gosh, I haven't been holding them really. I haven't even explained the real expectation.
What is my two?
So we'll hold on that one for the other topic. But I think with this particular one, diving into looking at what are they doing all year, and what are the things that it's really just a recap. I like to have the discussion of it's an 80-20. 20% of the time is about the past, 80% of the time is about the future.
Right.
And that's a buildup of the 20% is a buildup of your one-on-ones.
Right. So if we look at things people aren't doing well, I mean, they may be trying to make improvements, but we're still missing the boat in that one, it's an event, right? That's like one time a year, this is your performance review. Here's the yes, there are times where people do performance reviews twice a year. There are companies that do that. I get that.
And I'm hearing quarterly.
Yeah. They're also doing, they're taking the feedback from the employee first before they're doing their own. So they're not having to carry any load or responsibility or less responsibility in their own. That might not be a popular thing when people listen to this. Like, oh, I never do that. I'm like, maybe you don't. But the perception by the employee
there are some
is,
that there are. Some are doing that.
Yes.
I don't think everyone, but definitely there's some that are doing that.
People are ranking people against each other, against the position. There's a culture of check this box. You have to do this, as opposed to what's really intended.
Yes.
So if we flip this and say, okay, what can people do to make these better? Like, how can this be of value to the employee as opposed to this administrative nightmare, whether for the employee or the employee manager, right? That we're doing. I think it's important to recognize we talk about 3 different kinds of feedback kind of things, right? There's the check-in, right? There's the check-in, there's the monthly one-on-one, and then there's the annual, if you decide to do that. So let's take those 3 and say, what are the specifics about each of the 3 of those? Like when you talk to your leader managers, how do you describe each of those 3 things?
Well, and I also, I guess I don't know if you're going to call that check-in. I also use it's opportunities just for random feedback. It's not specific either, right? So it's about getting into the pattern or habit of looking to give positive feedback to reinforce, or looking to have a conversation about something that maybe needs to be adjusted. Those should be happening
All the time.
All the time.
Yep.
And, I was just having the conversation with someone about the importance of the positive feedback and how that reassures a person. But being intentional about what are your expectations and then go look for it.
Right.
Because we're not looking for it, right? So a check-in to me, and when I'm having discussions, is more of a specific on job tasks, projects, where are they at, what might be hurdles they're bumping into,
right.
Are they on time, and so forth. And within organizations, I'm finding that people are doing those a lot weekly, for the check-ins.
Yeah.
Then you get into the one-on-ones, and one of the things within our leadership programs we really promote is the minimum of the monthly one-on-ones,
right?
Because this is really specific about the person. So it's learning about, what do they enjoy doing? What do they want to try? What do they aspire? What do they want to check out? Where are they at first and foremost? Where are they at against where they should be for their job, right?
Right.
For the expectations of the role. When they're doing that really well, what are those other things they want to learn? What interests them? What do they want to try out? How do they want to get involved? And I think getting involved is also something important at all stages, but like different parts of the organization or learning parts of the organization. But it's that's where those goals are coming from. So
that's the developmental side.
Yes, where the check-ins are, it's very tactical, task, project related.
Right.
And then having them separate, I think is important, because they sometimes, when you do it together, it's, I don't know.
And I know that there are some that they might have a quick thing, I need to update you on this project while you're doing your one-on-one, your developmental one-on-one.
Yes.
But your majority of the time, it is about the person who is learning, the person whose goals were developing.
How do we lift them up, right? Because
yes.
as I'm, when I'm having conversations, it's about leveling everyone up, and it's through delegation, right? So it's, okay, once you identify and have the discussions about what they're interested in, now what can I delegate to them and provide them opportunities to gain experience, or how do I involve them in other parts of the business because they're interested? Right. And then having them set some goals, and that allows the manager to know, oh, I could delegate this or this because they want to learn X, right? So then that helps them with some of their goals that actually help them open up time so they can then take on new responsibilities.
You're working with cross-functional teams on projects or committees and things like that really helps people understand what goes on outside of this specific team, and what are the challenges that team might be facing that's like, oh, we're causing that problem, right?
Correct.
Or there may be a recognition, it's like we could create some efficiencies even while we're working on this other project. So I just think that, that developmental, what do you want to do, try, be, become, experience kind of thing is so important. Not about, but you're not doing that right, and that's not quite right, and okay, here's another year, let me yawn while we're doing that.
Yes.
And how can you create time for people to find their flow, right?
Yes.
How can they find that thing that they can do 20% more of their time that actually gives them joy, makes a day go by faster, and actually helps them contribute.
Yes. Well, I think it's also important to start recognizing within your team, as you're having conversations with your more experienced people, what I'm going to refer to are some of their low payoff activities they're really good at, they can do in their sleep, but it's a high payoff activity for someone else in the team to learn. So how do we shift some responsibilities so we're gaining, we're providing opportunities for other people to develop, which then also, that whole thing I hear often is, oh, I don't want to overburden or stress my people. Well, if you're helping remove, have other people
start doing, stop doing.
Yes, that start and stop. Now they have time and you're allowing it. It's not that you're just building more on and on. It is about distributing it so other people can gain those experiences.
Automating it, maybe it needs to be refined, moving things around, things like that. And then the third part is there are some companies that have completely gone away from annual reviews.
Yes.
And I'm kind of a fan of that. However, if you do still do annual reviews or biannual reviews where there's a formality to that, then what we're saying is let's take the conversations that we've been having and talk about what progress we've made.
Yes.
And we're just making it, let's just make sure we've done that. That's the formality of it. And if we haven't been setting quarterly goals or monthly goals or 6-month goals, that we say, okay, over the course of the next whatever period you want to plan for, what are those big things? So what do I want to try? What do I want to be? What do I want to become? What experiences?
What do I want to get better at?
What do I want to get better at? The job that they have right now, that middle, what's the expectation? Are you raising the expectation? Right? Or has the expectation needed to be raised? And making sure people understand that. And then what are the things that maybe if they gave some discretionary effort, gives them that, oh, and it's not meeting the expectation that gives you the raise, it's the discretionary effort that gives them the raise.
Yes.
And I don't know that people completely understand what's discretionary effort versus expectation. Again, another episode, we're going to talk about those expectations. But I think that if we come back to this and say, yes, performance reviews are an ongoing process. It's an evolution of people getting better. And I completely agree with you that there are a lot of people trying a lot of new things. But the more touches they have to have and the more administration that's required, the less they become part of what is really valuable to employees. Employees don't want to be judged. They want to know, what can I do to earn more money and to gain more skills and to feel like I'm valued? And if that isn't really the conversation, we're really missing the boat on this.
We are, yes, 100%.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of The Leadership Hustle. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode.